Jay North, the name that once echoed across American households in the early 1960s as the mischievous platinum blonde boy known as Dennis the Menace, has sadly passed away. TMZ has confirmed the news of his death, marking the end of an era that began with a smile and a slingshot. He died at the age of 73 at his home in Lake Butler, Florida, after a battle with colorectal cancer, a disease he had fought quietly. For many, Jay was more than just a child star. He was a symbol of the golden age of television, a period where characters like Dennis captured the innocent mischief and charm of childhood. But behind the laughter that audiences cherished for years, Jay North's own story was filled with pain, isolation, and ultimately, a search for peace. The news was shared by Lori Jacobson, a longtime friend of Jay and the wife of actor John Provost, who was best known for his role in Lassie. Lori revealed that Jay's final days were spent with his beloved wife Cindy and her daughters from a previous marriage, women he reportedly adored deeply. According to Jacobson, they provided Jay with a kind of love and familial bond he had never known. As an only child who never met his biological father, Jay's early life lacked the warmth of a traditional family. But Cindy and her daughters changed that. They gave him the sense of belonging that had eluded him for most of his life. Lori lovingly shared that Cindy and the girls gave Jay the family he never had, offering him comfort, laughter, and unconditional love until his final breath. Over the past month, Jay's health had taken a sharp decline. Cancer, which he had kept at bay for some time, became increasingly aggressive. His world grew smaller as he isolated himself, not out of fear or despair, but out of necessity to protect his fragile health. During the isolation, he lost touch with many friends, but his spirit was lifted during the past Christmas when Lori Jacobson delivered hundreds of letters from his fans. These letters, filled with gratitude and affection, reminded him that his impact on pop culture and people's hearts had never truly faded. They became his comfort, his proof that he had made a difference. Jay's journey in show business began well before Dennis the Menace. Before he was even 10 years old, he had appeared in small roles on TV shows like 77 Sunset Strip, Rescue 8, and Sugarfoot. These were just stepping stones that led him to the iconic role that would define his life. When Jay was cast as Dennis Mitchell in 1959, he was just a boy, but he was thrust into a spotlight that would shine on him with an unrelenting intensity for 4 years. He starred in every one of the show's 146 episodes from 1959 to 1963, embodying the impish charm and energy of Dennis with uncanny authenticity. Yet, the production had its dark corners. To embody the character more fully, Jay's natural hair was bleached to an unnatural platinum blonde, and he was coached to lie about his age in interviews, telling people he was a year younger than he actually was to maintain the image of the ever-young troublemaker. Behind the scenes, though, the reality was far less joyful. Years after the show ended, Jay opened up about the abuse he endured while filming. His aunt, who served as his on-set guardian, subjected him to physical and verbal abuse whenever he made mistakes. He revealed that she would drag him away from the cameras and other adults, beating him when he forgot lines or didn't perform to her expectations. Jay always clarified that his mother and the rest of the crew had no knowledge of the abuse. It was a lonely kind of suffering, hidden in the cracks of Hollywood's golden facade. This abuse left lasting scars on his psyche and his relationship with the industry. Lori Jacobson, with tears in her voice, once said, "He had a rough ride in Hollywood." He did not enjoy the experience. He was, at one point, very angry and bitter that the adults around him did nothing to help him or ease his burden. It was a brutal truth that explained much of Jay's later resentment toward the world that had made him a star. When Dennis the Menace ended in 1963, Jay was left adrift. He was no longer the adored boy on America's television screens. He attempted to continue acting, transitioning into voiceover work in the late 1960s and early 1970s. He lent his voice to animated shows such as Arabian Nights, Here Comes the Grump, and The Pebbles and Bam Bam Show. Though these roles kept him in the entertainment industry, they were a far cry from the fame and visibility he once knew. As time passed, Jay began to retreat further from the industry. By the late 1980s, he had virtually retired from acting, save for the occasional cameo where he appeared as himself. He appeared in an episode of The Simpsons and later in the 2003 comedy Dickie Roberts, Former Child Star, a film that humorously portrayed the bittersweet reality of life after childhood fame. But even then, Jay's appearances were tinged with melancholy. They were less about nostalgia and more about closure, a chance to acknowledge his past on his own terms. He found a second calling in a profession few would expect. Jay North, the one-time star of primetime television, became a correctional officer in Florida. It was a career shift that raised eyebrows but made perfect sense upon closer examination. Working with troubled youth in the juvenile system allowed Jay to connect with kids who, like him, had experienced trauma and hardship at an early age. He could relate to their struggles and offered them understanding that came from a place of real empathy. Through his work, Jay also began counseling former child stars, helping them navigate the complex emotional terrain of post-fame life. He partnered with the organization A Minor Consideration, which supported young actors who had been through the ringer of show business. He shared his story with them, not as a cautionary tale but as a beacon of survival. Lori Jacobson shared that Jay also worked with inmates on death row, many of whom had suffered from traumatic childhoods. These conversations, deep and emotional, helped Jay make peace with his own past. They helped him understand that his pain had not been in vain, that his experiences could help others feel less alone. In guiding others through their darkness, he found his own light. Despite the pain and the years of bitterness, he began to reconcile with his past. He stopped seeing himself solely as a victim of the system and started to view himself as someone who had emerged from it stronger and wiser. While Jay North never made peace with Hollywood entirely, he did cherish one enduring gift it had given him: friendship. Over the years, he remained close to fellow child stars who had walked similar paths. Angela Cartwright, Jerry Mathers, Stan Livingston, Paul Peterson, and Brandon Cruz were more than just acquaintances. They were a tribe, a support system of people who understood the complex dance between fame and identity. With them, Jay found solidarity. They spoke the same language of quiet wounds and shared triumphs, and through these friendships, Jay rediscovered pieces of himself he had lost long ago. Jay North's life was not one of easy chapters or tidy conclusions. It was a story of contrasts, of childhood stardom and hidden abuse, of public adoration and private anguish, of Hollywood lights and Florida shadows. Yet through it all, he kept going. Kept searching for meaning, for family, for peace. He found it in the arms of his wife and her daughters. He found it in the handwritten letters from fans. He found it in the faces of troubled youth and inmates on death row who saw in him not a television character but a kindred soul. Jay North passed away surrounded by love, something he had spent a lifetime seeking. And perhaps in that moment, the mischievous boy who once made America laugh finally found the peace he so richly deserved. Rest in peace, Jay. You were never just Dennis the Menace. You were a survivor, a guide, a friend, and above all, human.